Hi everyone and welcome to another vlog. I'm going to keep this intro very short because we have a lot of spooky things to talk about. The first thing I want to do is go back to the horror haikus that I've been writing, and I've fallen a bit behind, not in writing them but just in me reading them to you. So I'm gonna do two today, and these are for October 8th and 9th. So for the 8th of October, the inspiration was one of my favorite horror movie characters ever, and that's the Babadook from the film of the same name, which I highly recommend. It's a very interesting exploration of grief and in general living with pain and open wounds. It's a very sad movie in my opinion and I'm very happy with the haiku I came up with. It might be very mildly spoilery, so if you haven't watched the film, maybe you want to skip this one. And it goes like this. Storybook villain, you can stay, although it hurts, this is your house too. And then the prompt for the next day's haiku was Victor Frankenstein. This is what I wrote. Look in the mirror, not creator, destroyer, more monster than God. I hope you enjoyed them, and I was super happy to see that in my previous vlog, another YouTuber whose name's Eric, I will link his channel below, he shared with me some of the haikus he has written in the past about the Universal monsters. It was really fun to read that. So if anyone else wants to write a haiku about any of the prompts, I'd be more than happy to read them. The other thing I want to talk about right now is the short story I read for my horror short story writing course. Essentially, we read one story every other week and then we discuss it in class. The story for this one was The Patter of Tiny Feet by Nigel Neal. I was really excited to see these in the reading list because I had never heard of this story before. I had never heard of this author before. Apparently, he didn't write much horror, but he just happened to come up with this one. I found out that this story was included in this anthology of haunted house stories, so that gave me the hint that it's a story about a haunted house. And then within the anthology, it was under a specific section that was about child hauntings. This story was extremely interesting from a storytelling narrative perspective, although again it's quite old-fashioned, so it's definitely a little bit dated. You can always date a story by how the author and the characters speak about women, but I guess in this particular story it does contribute because the character who's speaking in a not so nice way about his wife is not very likable. So let me give you a better summary. This is about, it's quite unclear, but what I understood is there's two journalists. One of them is the main journalist and the other one is a photographer, and they research or write articles about paranormal events. So they go to this house because this man wrote to them saying that there was a paranormal phenomenon happening in his house and he wanted these people to report on it. So they go there and it's this guy, he's on the older side, and he starts saying that he's going to describe what has been happening, but he doesn't want to predispose these journalists to think in either way. Although through the dialogue you get the idea that that's the image he's trying to portray, but he definitely is not shy in sharing the theories he has about these supposed haunting. The phenomenon that he describes is that in a certain hallway in the house, during the night, he hears like tiny feet jumping and dancing around, and that it's very recurring, that it happens multiple times per night. And while they're conducting this interview, the journalists realize there's this photograph of this strikingly beautiful woman. So it turns out this woman is the wife of this guy. And it's quite confusing why someone so young and pretty would marry this like plain looking guy, if not slightly unattractive. The point is that this guy has a theory that his wife really wanted children desperately, but he didn't want any. And because of this, her mental health deteriorated and then she committed suicide. What he thinks this thing he hears is kind of like a poltergeist, where his wife had so much desire about having a kid that once she passed away, that energy kind of like manifested this ghost child. So it's not like a real ghost because there was never a child. It's just like these weird childlike energy. That's all I'm going to say about the plot to avoid spoilers, although it's a very difficult story to spoil because there is no clear resolution to what is happening. It's not even clear to the reader what any of the characters believe or don't believe. Just based on the dialogue, I and other people in the class got the impression that this man was definitely shady, that maybe the events didn't quite happen as he said they did, and it's also unclear whether the journalists believe him, but eventually they do go and investigate and experience some of these weird things that the man has described, and they're definitely a little bit spooked, but as I said, it's not quite clear what they think or anyone thinks, and that definitely contributes to the reader having this weird feeling of confusion. I actually can't decide if I liked it or not. I don't think it's something that would work in a modern day, but I'm definitely happy that I got to read something completely different from what I've read before. That's all I have time for today, but I'll be back soon to talk more about horror movies and books. I'm super excited because I'm going to another meeting with my horror movie club, but we're going to be watching a movie that we've been wanting to see for ages, and now it's available on streaming in the UK. Well, it's been maybe for a couple months, but you know, we're all busy and our schedules just didn't work, but we're finally getting together to watch Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. I've heard it is the scariest found footage film ever and found footage is probably in my top 3 horror movie subgenres, and obviously I want to be scared, so I think it's gonna be amazing. We need to talk about Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. This is a Korean film from 2018. I first heard about it, I think maybe through my friend from Horror Movie Club, or I came across it, I don't remember. But it's a movie that has definitely acquired a cult following, and it's quite famous, or should I say infamous, for being extremely scary. It is a found footage film, which I know people have mixed feelings about this subgenre, but I love it. And I think what's so great about it is that when it's bad, it can be silly fun, but when it's good, it can be very effective because you just basically feel like you're living it. This movie is about a group of young people, I think maybe teenagers, early 20s. They have a YouTube channel. I don't remember what it's called, but it's actually really funny, and they play their little intro, which does very much look like a real YouTube channel. And what they do in this channel is live stream visits to haunted places. So for one of their live streams, they decide to visit the Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital, which is rumored to be extremely haunted, and the legend is that the director, for some unknown reason, ended up killing all of the patients and their spirits are just like trapped in there. And the other part of the legend is that there is this room which used to be an intensive care unit that no one has been able to open, and people who have tried to open it in the past have gone mad or something bad happens to them. So their hook, or what they're marketing, is that during this live stream they're not only going to visit Gonjiam, but they're gonna summon spirits and they're gonna go open room 402. So as you can see, even from the setup, this is clearly a terrible idea. And let me tell you, I am really not one to get easily scared, but I thought the tension building in this one was so good. There is such a great balance between slow, spooky, tense moments and then full-on, really scary in your face stuff that it definitely kept the adrenaline running for the whole time. Also, there is this very, very famous scene. If you just go and Google Gonjiam Haunted Asylum and look at the images, there is one specific image that they use a lot to market this movie, or in general, it's just everywhere in like Reddit, or everyone whoever talks about this movie uses this image as like the scariest scene in the movie. And I've seen that before and I was like, okay, that looks even a little bit silly, and also now that I've seen it, it's probably not gonna scare me when it happens in the movie. But actually, in context, it's even worse, and I was so freaked out. I think it's one of the most iconic horror movie scenes I've ever seen. I think this is definitely a movie that lives up to the hype. I know there's a lot of controversy every time a movie is called the scariest movie ever, because there's a lot of people that are gonna go and be like, oh, it didn't scare me, whatever. But honestly, I would just ignore that, because this is objectively scary. And even if you're not particularly scared by this type of horror, I would say the movie is fun enough to warrant a watch. So if it's available to stream wherever you are, I would highly encourage you to watch it. I can't believe I almost forgot to say that we actually watched another movie that day. We watched this before Gonjiam, and it's another highly anticipated found footage horror movie for the club, and that is VHS Beyond. We have watched almost every single VHS movie together and we've always enjoyed it, so we're quite excited for the new one. I don't know how I didn't guess this from the title and the movie poster, but VHS Beyond is all about aliens. Mostly about aliens. And like all the VHS movies, Beyond, it's an anthology that is structured in a way that you have one overarching story, and then intermingled with that you have the shorts. And this one has, I think, 5 shorts, and all of them except one revolve around people making contact with extraterrestrial life. I was particularly excited to watch the one directed by Kate Siegel and also written by Mike Flanagan. So I was sure that that one was going to be good, and it was actually amazing. I think quality-wise, it was the best. However, for emotional impact, there was one that was much worse. I think it was the third one, and that one had actually nothing to do with aliens. It's a very, very twisted, disturbing kind of body horror short about these kind of psychopathic women that does things to people that no one should be doing to other people. And I really don't want to spoil anything at all because they are obviously very, very short, so I don't want to reduce the shock value of any of them. If you haven't watched any of the VHS movies, I would also encourage you to do so, and you can start with VHS Beyond because there is no link between them, especially if you are like me and are really scared, like actually real life scared of ever coming in contact with extraterrestrial life. This will definitely be nightmare fuel for you. So in general, it was a super successful horror movie club night. I think maybe one of the most successful ones we've ever had, and these are definitely movies that I would highly recommend. Also, I have for you my horror haiku for October the 10th. I'm not gonna lie, after the news that the prompts are not gonna run all the way till the 31st of October, I'm feeling a little bit demotivated. So this might actually be the last haiku. I might change my mind later, but I don't know, lost a little bit of motivation. Anyways, the prompt for October the 10th is giant spiders, and my haiku is as follows. Your web, silky soft. Your eyes, 8 black shiny spheres. Your appetite, huge. I had fun with this one, and again tried something new with doing the first word in every line. So yeah, it's been really fun, but it's definitely just one more thing to keep track of. And as I said, I know I won't have the satisfaction of having done a full month of them, so these might have been the last one. I hope you enjoyed them. I thought I should give a reading update because I have started 2 books, and so far they've both been really fun and spooky. So the first one is also the pick for Amy McCaw's YA book club. I'll link her channel below. They read YA horror and thrillers, And October's pick is super fun. It's called Say Her Name and it's by Juno Dawson. I've heard about this author before and I've been sort of interested. They've written this series called Her Royal Majesty Coven, which is a witch book but more fantasy than horror, if I understand correctly. And that's why I haven't made up my mind to pick it up, but I think I will because I'm really enjoying Say Her Name. And this is based on the legend of Bloody Mary. Also, it's really fun because it literally starts during Halloween night and these teenagers are having kind of, not party, but just like a get together. They've kind of snuck out of school. And one of the girls brings up this dare or challenge to say Bloody Mary 5 times in front of a mirror. And 3 of these kids do it. And then strange things start happening and they have started to accept that maybe they are being haunted, but it has a great atmosphere. It reminds me a lot of The Ring, more so the American film version, because there's this urban legend component, and also, according to the legend, the worst of it happens after 5 days. So there's this countdown element as well. Anyways, it's super fun. I'm having a blast, and I even enjoy the teenage characters. So yeah, this one's definitely a recommendation. The other book I'm reading is a thriller. I've mentioned before that I love doing thrillers as audiobooks because it's just super easy for me to follow. But obviously, because it's October, I wanted a spooky one. And I remembered that this book exists. It is called The Turn of the Key and it is by Ruth Ware. I'm not a fan of Ruth Ware, not gonna lie. Although maybe I've just read one book of hers, I think. Anyways, it was bad. But I really wanted to read this one because it is not necessarily a retelling, but it's definitely inspired by The Turn of the Screw by Emma James. And it definitely seems like it's going to be that kind of spooky. This is about a young woman. She is a nanny and she found a job that looks great. It's a live-in post in a remote house in Scotland and she just has to take care of these kids. However, she finds out that all the recent nannies have left very suddenly and very quickly. The mom of the house kind of hints that they all seemed to believe that there were ghosts in the house. But obviously that's just legend and this new girl has nothing to worry about. I also really like the fact that this couple, they have these huge old Victorian house, but they've done a lot of work on it and they've incorporated a lot of technology. So they are architects and they have like a smart home business. So there's a lot of controlling things, panels and through the iPad and through an app. I'm into it. I'm into these kind of techno thriller vibes I'm getting from it. I have no idea so far where this is going. Oh yeah, actually, I should mention that we do know right off the bat that this woman is in jail. The nanny is now in jail because one of the children died. So we know that, but I don't know who dies, and obviously at this point I have no idea how it happened, and hopefully Ruth Ware won't let me down this time. Good morning, it's Sunday today. I'm feeling a bit stressed out just because I have a lot of chores to do and really I just wanna watch horror movies, but things need to get done. So I do have something really exciting that I'm doing today. I'm going to the bookshop to pick up a pre-order, a very anticipated pre-order. So at least that should put me in a better mood. So yeah, let's go. The plan for tonight is having a writing session. I've started writing these really wholesome, supernatural, ghosty story that takes place during the Day of the Dead, which is November 1st and 2nd, which is, by the way, inspired by true events of my life that happened to me. But anyways, we're getting very close to that date and I haven't finished it, or I'm not even halfway through. So I really need to put some time into it, which is what I'm going to be doing tonight, even though I am pretty tired. But I must do it for the story, which, by the way, is going to be available for everyone to read right after Day of the Dead. I think I'm going to put it on my Substack, which I've just started and is empty currently, but it's going to be there for you to read. Also, I'm going to write in bed, which is not necessarily best writing practice, but as I said, I'm really tired and also I'm really cold. So I think my best bet is just to be as comfortable as possible. So we're gonna do it anyways. This is what I have so far. This is what I have after roughly 2 hours with quite a large break, to be honest. It really is a first draft. I don't know if the ending is actually the ending or if I need to add another part. Originally, this was not the ending, but then I reached this part and I thought everything was resolved. I have no idea. I'm gonna get some feedback from one of my critique groups on Saturday. So hopefully I'll decide. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm about to eat this Reese's peanut butter pumpkin, but I feel so scammed. See? It has no face! I just thought I needed to show you. Can't believe we're basically halfway through October now, and I'm starting to freak out because barely any of my bucket list items are ticked off. To be fair, most of them are already in the schedule. I just have to do them when the time comes. But there are a few easy ones that I thought I could get going with. So this morning before work, I decided to do my cemetery stroll because the cemetery is right around the corner from that really nice donut place I showed you maybe last vlog. So I'm just gonna grab a donut for breakfast and some coffee and then go stroll in the cemetery. Yay! I have made it to the cemetery. I am in Greyfriars Cemetery and it was quite a walk. Some of it was uphill, so I'm just gonna rest and have my donut. This time I got the ectoplasm. Look at it, it's so cute. It has pistachio cream inside. This is supposed to be one of the most haunted locations in Edinburgh. That's why it's locked. Sadly, it's time for me to go to work. Boring work. See you later. I'm here to close out this vlog with a reading update. I managed to finish both the books that I was reading, and they were both really good. I gave them both 4 stars, and in general I had so much fun with them, and they were so perfect for the season. So the first one was The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. I won't go into the details of what the books are about because I literally just said that earlier in the vlog, so I'll just say what I thought about them. This one was so good. It was honestly really creepy all the way through. I was right in that the author really incorporated these technology elements as a way to essentially just mess with this poor nanny that was just trying to do her job in this house. The kids were definitely creepy. We are in an isolated house, and actually part of the story is that she's left alone with these kids. There aren't a lot of characters, but there are just enough people involved in the story for you to suspect a couple different people and not really know what's going on. As far as thrillers go, I feel like it's very rare for me to be completely satisfied with the ending, but this one actually made sense. It wasn't unhinged like the previous Ruth Ware book that I read and didn't like, which by the way was The Woman in Cabin 10. This one was okay. It was a perfectly reasonable way to end the story. I just don't think it was super exciting, but the rest of the book was entertaining enough that I didn't really mind. If you're looking for a thriller that's more on the spooky side, I would definitely recommend this one. The next book I finished was this YA horror book called Say Her Name by Juno Dawson. As I mentioned before, it's inspired in the urban legend of Bloody Mary. I absolutely loved this one. I don't want to spoil much about it, but if you love the movie The Ring, you need to read this. They're so similar in many ways that I don't want to say explicitly right now, but it will give you the exact same feeling all the way through. It was exciting. The teenage characters had space to be and act like teenagers without being annoying, which I think it's a hard balance to strike. As is very common in many YA books, there was a little romance side plot, but actually this one is quite central to the plot, and it was kind of cute. Also, as far as YA goes, it actually delved into some quite serious topics that are still age appropriate and might actually be interesting to teenagers. So that was good. And if you're looking for something that's definitely creepy but is still kind of fun and lighthearted, I guess just by the nature of it being YA, this is one that you should definitely try. Then I started my non-fiction morbid book. I went for The Anatomy Murders because I could do these as an audiobook, and I started listening to these while I was having breakfast in the graveyard, and it's so good. First of all, I want to say that it was like the perfect setting to start this book because the first chapter delves into the context of the city of Edinburgh at the time, were the historical key events that allowed these murders to happen, and one of them was the high demand for bodies that the anatomy lecturers had. So obviously this prompted a lot of grave robbing. And if you walk down the cemetery there, you can see that many of the graves had these like metal bars over the top to try and stop grave robbers from robbing the bodies there. So it was just the perfect setting to start listening to these, and it's actually super interesting. As I said, I've heard so much about this case, but this book really puts it into context. These are crimes that would have literally never happened anywhere else because of the very specific conditions. If the demand for fresh corpses hadn't been as high as it was at that time, probably these people would have never come up with the idea of killing people to sell to the anatomy lecturers. And chapter 1 was in general super interesting because it went quite deep into the historical context. So before grave robbing even started, it discusses like where these people were getting the cadavers from, which was basically from poor people who died in hospitals or in the streets that no one claimed, and how there was a large group of people that actually did not agree with this, that thought it was unfair and were trying to bring about new regulations that would essentially take advantage of people not having money or friends and family to claim their bodies. So yeah, so far it's really interesting and I'm excited to keep listening to that. And then I started The Pale House Devil by Richard Kadri. This is a really short novella. I only read, I think, the first 2 chapters, and so far I like it. I really like the 2 main characters, which are a pair of, they're not really detectives, they're called paranormal mercenaries. It seems from what I read so far that they're essentially hitmen. And the interesting thing about them is that one of them is just a regular living person and the other one is an undead person, which means they've died and somehow come back to life. And they have different skills that allow them to complete their job. I found them both very, very likable characters. I love the dynamic between them, and I think the opening 2 chapters really set them up as the type of character that I'll be invested in. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to see what they go and do next. That is all. I would love to know what you've been up to. What have you been doing this season? What have you been reading or watching? Or if you don't want to say anything in particular, just leave me a bunch of Halloween emojis and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!